make sure you're not paying any money to register and sales. Conduct a SWOT analysis of your 3 NAICS codes. So just look at your top 3 NAICS codes that we talked about yesterday, and just get together with your teams that are in the class with you and just collectively think through what your strengths are for each of the NAICS codes, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And you have the material to go back through that if need to. Find at least 3 RFPs for each of your 3 NAICS codes. And you can do a divide and conquer within your teams. You're going to have more of a struggle since you're here by yourself. But what I want you to do is start getting a sense of what's in these RFPs. So I want you to really look at 2 key areas. I want you to look at Section C, and we're going to, and we'll talk about this now, but look at Section C and figure out whether your product or your service today meets those requirements. So you're looking at Section C, which is the technical requirements, and determine whether your product or service today meets all of those requirements. Not 90% of the requirements, not 22% of the requirements, all the requirements. If it does not meet all of the requirements, how would you make your solution compliant if you chose to? So sometimes this is going to be a bigger reach than you want to commit to. That's fine. But just be thinking, because this is the process you need to be thinking about for every RFP. Is it something that you can bring in a subcontractor to do? Is this a deal that is bigger than you and you need to have someone else prime it and you subcontract to them? You know, we talked about lots of different ways you can get government business. You know, I used to use the term skin the cat. Lots of different ways to skin the cat, and my daughter got a kitten and I can't use that analogy anymore. But that's why I always hesitate. What's another word? What's another phrase for that? Lots of different ways to win the business. So you want to make sure that you are looking at that Section C, determining what you can do, what your product does today, versus what you would have to bring in subcontractors to do, or whether that would be a reason not to bid it. Maybe it's too big of a reach and you just decide you would pass on this one. Again, right now we're doing it for pretend, but this is the same process you would go through when you do it for real. So after you read Section C, then I want you to look at your 9 RFPs and look at the other sections. Now, I'm not asking you to do a detailed read. Just start skimming through the RFP, because when you are doing this for real, you're going to need to read every word of this RFP to make sure you know what you're committing to. So look up FAR clauses, read through things, just get a sense of what's in these RFPs, and write down any question that you have. Because when we get together in February, we're going to have about a 2-hour sitting around the room discussion about what your questions are. And if you don't have any questions, we will all be sitting there looking at one another intently. But no, seriously, like, this is your time to really get your hands around what an RFP in your industry, in your specific NAICS code looks like, and to get your questions answered. So let's use this time wisely to read through these RFPs and get your questions asked. And then the last thing, if you haven't sent it to me already, send me your company profile. Any questions about the homework? Okay, so we're going to be in here working through this for the next 20 or so minutes. We're going to have lunch at 12 o'clock, about 12 o'clock. And then you have the opportunity to stay in here and to work on these homework assignments. I recommend that highly because, look at you, you're all collectively gathered in your group, and you know, we all know, as soon as you go back into that office, it's all going to break loose. So use the opportunity now to get these things done, or at least started. And Stephanie, we'll have the room open until about 3.
Oh, or later.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're expected to be here till at least 3:30 anyway. So I'd say you could, if you need to stay till 5, we're going to be right here.
Yeah.
So,
But use the time wisely. If you have any questions about anything that you're doing as far as homework's concerned, or if you just want to touch base with me to see if you're in the right direction, feel free to call me. I have no problem taking your calls and talking you through it. Or send me an email if you're more comfortable with that, or text, or whatever mode strikes you. Okay, are we good? Any questions? Okay. All right, so let's just talk about this finding RFP process. We talked about FedBizOps. So here's what I want you to do. Find 3 RFPs for each of your NAICS codes. Go to your websites. In Section C, now your Section C may be called statement of work, performance work statement, technical requirements. And just so you know, I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference in these things. And we're going to have a session on it later, but just in case you start seeing these words. Okay, so there is a tenet of contract law that says whoever drafts the contract, if there are any errors or omissions, it's the fault of the drafter. So if I write the contract and I make a mistake in the contract, it's my fault. Everybody with me? This is important. So in the old days, the government used to write requirements as if they were the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that, thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that. And as a contractor, you knew very clearly that you had to meet each one of these requirements, otherwise you were non-compliant. That's what the thou shalt was all about. In that case, you drafted the contract. Where's government? Because the government said, thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that, so they were writing the contract. So if there were any errors or omissions, whose fault was it? Right. How do you think the government felt about that? Huh? Right? So they decided to shift the risk from themselves to the contractor. And the way they did that was they went from a statement of work that's very much the thou shalt language to a performance work statement. So what's the difference between statement of work and performance work statement? In a statement of work, I would say something like, I want to light this room. And I want there to be 12 lights that are 3 feet by 2 feet. And I want them spaced X number of inches apart. So do you see how the contractor shall provide 12 lights, they shall be this large, they shall be this far apart, very thou shalt, okay? Contrast that with a performance work statement, where the government says something like, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. The contractor needs to provide 60 lumens of light. Is 60 lumens a good number? Anybody know light? Let's just pretend we all know. 60 lumens of light. And I, as a contractor, could put together this configuration. I could put together one big skylight that indirect light comes, sunlight comes through. I could do little spotlights. I could do like mood lighting in here. I could do whatever I wanted. So basically the government is saying to me, I'm the government. I know that I can't do the work myself because I already made my make or buy decision and I discovered I either don't have the right skill set or my right skill set isn't available. So I've already cried uncle, which is why I'm coming to you. And I know that you do this every day and you're really good at it. And when I tell you precisely to do it this way, I know you're smarter about lighting than I am because you do this every day. You tell me what the best solution is. So you have the opportunity to be as creative and innovative and price it the way you think would be best. So in a performance work statement, they just tell you the what that has to be done. They don't tell you the how. And your challenge is to provide whatever lighting solution you want as long as it meets the 60 lumens. So you in the contract, you install your lighting solution, and the government comes in, or the contracting officer representative comes in with a light meter, and they test it, and they say 60 lumens. Good. Everything's fine. They come in, and it's 50 lumens, not good. You have to fix the contract to provide 60 lumens. Everybody with me? So the government right now is in a transition between statements of work, thou shalt, to performance work statements where they just tell you what the standard is that you have to meet, and they give you the solution, you figure out the solution to that. And what they've done by doing that is they've switched the risk, because who's drafting the contract now? We are, because we're telling them what our solution is. And therefore, if it only provides 50 lumens, we're not meeting the requirement, it's up to us to fix it at our own cost to get it up to 60. So when you see the difference between statement of work and performance work statement, That's the difference. They're trying to migrate towards performance work statements, but one of the things you'll find in the government is that somebody on high says, thou shalt do something. And it takes years for it to trickle down to all the organizations, because there's lack of training dollars, there's lack of training time. You know, some agencies take it more seriously than others. So even though it's like this mandate, it doesn't happen instantaneously. Would you guys agree with that? So just keep that in mind. So most agencies are trying to move towards performance work statements. And quite frankly, it's better for you because you can really figure out a solution. Like this may not be the most cost-effective solution you could put in. You might have something much better. And that gives you the opportunity to propose that. Let me ask you a question. Which do you think is easier for the government to evaluate? A statement of work or a performance work statement?
I would say statement of work, because it's all descriptive. Yeah.
And everybody looks exactly the same, right? Everybody, as long as you say you comply with each of those things, every proposal is going to look exactly the same. But when you do a performance work statement, one of you is going to have a skylight, one of you is going to have this light configuration, another one's going to have, so every one of those is different, so it's harder to evaluate. I think of it as the difference between a true-false test and an essay exam, right? In a true-false test, like a statement of work, you either meet the requirement or you don't meet the requirement. It's a very binary on-off, done. In a performance work statement, you have given me the standard that has to be met, and I have to write what's going to work. So the government can look at you and say, read your solution, or like, you know exactly what you're talking about, or you're flipping clueless, right? Because in an essay exam, you know, you have to, the knowledge has to come forth from your brain. It's not, you're not seeing something that you're just saying yes or no to. So I think it's a much harder process to go through, but it ends up with better solutions for the government. So in case you see performance work statements, that's what they're talking about. So in that case, you have a lot more flexibility in how you're going to meet the solution. So what you're doing in this part of the exercise is looking for your actual technical requirements. So every one of you is going to have different sets of technical requirements. This is your in the weeds space. I'm not going to be able to say to you, yes, your product meets those, or no, your product doesn't. That's up to you to decide. I can help you with all the other sections. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part, okay, so when you're reviewing the statements of work, what I want you to look for is think about the requirements that the product or services have to meet. How do those requirements compare to what you offer in your product or service? Some of these things are going to be minor changes. You know, your product comes with 3 months warranty, they want a year's warranty. So all you really have to do is take your product price, add 9 months of warranty to that price, and have a separate product offering to the government that your commercial product comes with 3 months and your government product comes with 1 year. And it's just a difference in price. Same product, just more warranty and a difference in price. That's a relatively easy change for you to make. But let's say that your product has to meet these 4 features, and your product today only meets 3 of those features. You can look at that 4th feature and say, you know what, we've had customers yelling about the fact that our product doesn't do this for years. Time to bite the bullet, let's just do it. So you make a corporate commitment to add that 4th feature. Or you say, no one has ever asked me for this feature before, and I'm not going to go through all this effort just for a government contract, and you decide not to do it. Those are all your internal business decisions, just think through them. So basically, what do you have to change about the way you do things to be compliant with the RFPs you're analyzing? And not every set of requirements is going to be the same. You know, Department of Justice need for your product might be totally different than NIH's need for your product. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis as to what they're asking for. Any questions about that? So the reason why we're doing all of this is to develop our pipeline. And our pipeline is our plan of all the different opportunities we're tracking. First we build the pipeline, and then we analyze the pipeline. You know, when are they coming out? Let's put them on a schedule over time so that we're not doing 5 at one time and none for 6 months, those kind of things. So we'll start developing that pipeline. You know, we're defining who the customer is for each of these RFPs. What's the status of the RFP? Is it a draft? Is it an invitation permit? Is it already a done deal? What are the due dates? What would you have to do differently? This is going to start your risk analysis process. Can you do this as a prime, or do you need to sub? Or do you need subcontractors to work with you if you prime it? So be thinking about, these are the kinds of questions that we start using when we start qualifying. Because remember yesterday, the funnel picture with lots and lots of opportunities, and we can only do a couple because we don't have the resources to do them all? This is what we're doing right now. We're starting to come up with a list, a pipeline of everything that's out there, and now we start whittling it down. Okay. The second part of that assignment is for you to list the questions from all the remaining pieces there. So as you're reading through these RFPs, get a glass of wine or a beer in your hand, just start the process. I've got his attention now, see that? Yeah, so that would be a good thing to start working on. Any questions about any of the homework assignments?
Yeah, sorry, about the point you just discussed, I have questions. Would it also be a possibility, I didn't answer it yet, but like, my concern too is that when we do start trying to put proposals out on the RFPs to where like we do start asking questions, that can kind of expose the one area you're trying to slide in and get the advantage there. Would that be a good chance for us to be able to try to discuss how to reword or to simply not even ask that question?
Sure. Yeah, if you see RFPs that you would ask government officials questions on, feel free to run them by me and I'll help you with that.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, so why don't we take a 10-minute break and then lunch will be in there and then you'll have the rest of the afternoon to work in here to do what you need. And I will see you next on February 12th.
Yeah, 12,
We'll be spending Valentine's Day together.
I say we get rid of that and do another Thanksgiving.
What?
I'm of the opinion we should get rid of Valentine's Day and have another Thanksgiving.
Yes, second.
I'll still send the girl flowers, but I need that turkey and eggs.
Better food.
You're not even gonna get the little hard candies on the shelf this year.
Really?
Yeah.
What's
Company's
that?
gone.
They missed the
NACO went out
lineup
of business.
because of,
Company's
like,
gone.
Nelco,
problems.
or something like
No
that.
hard candies this year, see? Kansas.
With the little notes on them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That you used
exactly
to put
right.
on the
Somebody's gonna
cupcakes.
buy them.
Yeah.
Now you have to pay extra money for the deformed M&Ms that happen to look like hearts.
And they said they have skyrocketed in price on Amazon for them.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly
Yes.
Things that you would, like, I would never go out and buy them, but now I feel like I'm a little disappointed with that.
That's probably why
It's
they're
just like
not
Joel
business
anyway.
They've been there since, I know since I was
I want to eat chocolate, let me have it.
I'm a chocolate girl, so as long as they're chocolate, I'm happy. All right, everybody. Did the 3 days go okay for you? Any changes you want?